Michael Saylor did the homework, and then when Michael Saylor got done doing the homework, he couldn't sleep. He said, Anthony, I couldn't sleep. Once I figured out what Bitcoin was, like, how am I going to buy enough of this network? How am I going to do it? And so he's in. So I'm telling you, on the margin, there's going to be a legion of people this year that do that homework and get long Bitcoin.
Welcome to Bankless, where we explore the frontier of internet money and internet finance. This is Ryan Sean Adams. David is out today, and I'm here to help you become more bankless. Guys, different type of podcast today. We have Anthony Scaramucci on the podcast. Wanted to have him on to get the TradFi perspective, the Wall Street perspective on everything that is going on in crypto. Of course, 2024 has been a year marked by Wall Street entering crypto in a very big way. We've got the ETFs, we've got people like Larry Fink weighing in on it. And now at the end of 2024, we have a new administration taking the helm, of which Anthony knows a thing or two about. We talk about a few things. Number one, the election of Donald Trump, what this means for crypto. Two, the likelihood of a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Anthony is actually very bullish on this, and he explains why. Number three, how crypto-pilled is Wall Street actually? Is there more evangelism to be done? What's left to do there? And number four, advice for investors who are trying to make it to the other side, not just in this market, but in all markets. Guys, let's get right to the episode with Anthony Scaramucci. But before we do, we want to thank the sponsors that made this episode possible, including our number one recommended crypto exchange. That's KRAKEN. Go create an account.
Want to know the exchange we at Bankless use to buy, sell, and trade crypto? It's KRAKEN, one of the longest standing and most secure crypto platforms in the world, with tools for every type of trader to get started. Over 13 million users trust KRAKEN with their funds because they lead with transparency and privacy through top-notch security measures. Plus, you'll have access to professional 24/7, 365 client support from real humans because your financial goals deserve real attention. KRAKEN also has a trading platform for advanced traders called KRAKEN Pro. Professionals and degens love KRAKEN Pro because it's one of the most customizable, high-performance, and intuitive trading platforms in the industry. Design your ultimate trading interface by choosing from over 25 widgets for market data, analysis, execution, and other order management tools. Save multiple layouts and switch between them effortlessly on any trading scenario across 300 different assets. Manage your trades on the go with KRAKEN Pro's highly rated mobile app, or use the all-new desktop app to unlock ladder trading in a native Rust application. With KRAKEN Pro, you can truly trade like a pro. Ready to take control over your crypto journey? Visit kraken.com/bankless to get started today. Not investment advice. Crypto trading involves risk of loss and is offered to U.S. customers through Payward Interactive Inc. View legal disclosures at kraken.com/legal/disclosures. UNISWAP Labs is making history with the largest bug bounty ever. $15.5 million for critical bugs found in Uniswap v4. This isn't just any update. Uniswap v4 is built with hundreds of contributions from community developers and has already undergone 9 independent audits, making it one of the most rigorously reviewed code bases to be deployed on-chain. And with 2.4 trillion in cumulative volume processed across Uniswap v2 and v3 without a single hack, the commitment to security and transparency is rock solid. Now Uniswap Labs is taking an extra step to make v4 as secure as possible with a $15.5 million bug bounty. Head to the link in the show notes to dive in and participate in the Uniswap v4 bug bounty. All the details, from eligibility and scope to the rewards, are there. The ARBITRUM portal is your one-stop hub to entering the Ethereum ecosystem. With over 800 apps, ARBITRUM offers something for everyone. Dive into the epicenter of DeFi, where advanced trading, lending, and staking platforms are redefining how we interact with money. Explore ARBITRUM's rapidly growing gaming hub, from immersed role-playing games, fast-paced fantasy MMOs, to casual luck battle mobile games. Move assets effortlessly between chains and access the ecosystem with ease via ARBITRUM's expansive network of bridges and on-ramps. Step into ARBITRUM's flourishing NFT and creator space, where artists, collectors, and social converge, and support your favorite streamers all on-chain. Find new and trending apps and learn how to earn rewards across the ARBITRUM ecosystem with limited time campaigns from your favorite projects. Empower your future with ARBITRUM. Visit portal.arbitrum.io to find out what's next on your Web3 journey.
Bankless Nation, very excited to introduce you to Anthony Scaramucci. He is a finance guy, an entrepreneur. I would say also maybe a political figure. He's definitely a crypto bull, though, and he is the current founder and managing partner of alternative investment firm SkyBridge Capital. He reached, I would say, some pop culture residence after his brief tenure as the White House communications director under last tenure of President Donald Trump. And he's also coming out with a book in January, as next month, called The Little Book of Bitcoin, What You Need to Know That Wall Street Has Already Figured Out. Anthony Scaramucci, welcome to Bankless.
I appreciate being on. You didn't mention the fact that I got fired from the White House, though. I
figured
guess 'cause
people would know about that part.
You think they
That
probably
made
know
some
that, right?
news.
You're just being nice in terms of the introduction of the podcast. Good for you.
Yeah, so it was a firing then. It wasn't mutual then. Not at
Well,
all.
I mean, listen, if you're there for 11 days, you probably want to stay longer than 11 days. But I deserve to be fired. I never complained about that. That wasn't anything I complained about.
All right. I get it. Why don't we start there, actually? Because this year was a pretty big election. It had definitely some outcomes for crypto. Did you have any takes on this election going into it?
Well, I mean, listen, I got it wrong. I didn't think Donald Trump was going to win. I said that openly. I looked at the map and looked at the demography of the country, and I said, I don't think he's going to win. But ultimately, you have two choices. And I think, if I'm being fair, I think Kamala Harris had a hard road. It was 107 days. It was very hard to build a campaign. She had people working for her that weren't her people. She inherited the Joe Biden campaign. Literally, when she went into the convention, Ryan, it said Joe Biden on the platform. It was sort of a rushed thing.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump in 2024, when I was working for him in 2016 during that campaign, he was a very famous person, and he was probably in the top 100 celebrities in the world. When he ran in 2024, he was by far the most famous person in the world. So he had name recognition and name saturation on all 6 of the continents that have people. And so it's hard. You're somebody that's not well known. Ryan, the day before the election, the most searchable term related to the election was, did Joe Biden drop out?
Actually, hilarious and sad, a little bit, that the American population is so uninformed.
Yeah, but it just gives you a sense of what was going on. And so for me, what I would say to you is I figured he says things that I thought people would be like, okay, we can't really return to that, right? So he's talking about non-white immigrants like they're subhuman. He says he wants to deport 15 million people. He said last Sunday that, if you're in the country and you were born here and therefore you had birthright citizenship, if your mother was not here legally, well, we're going to revoke your citizenship and we're going to deport the whole family. So let me give you a real fact set. I know somebody in the country 30 years, not here legally, has had 3 children, ages 18 to 25. They're all American citizens. They've never worked or lived anywhere else but this country. And so what Donald Trump is saying is he'll kick the mom out and then pull those kids out of their schools, out of their jobs, and deport them alongside of their mom. So I looked at that and said, okay, I don't think the American people want that. Now, on the flip side, if you're a Wall Street person, Wall Street said, no, he doesn't really mean that. He said 100 things. 20 things he said were really good, and those are the things he really means. The other 80 things that he said that are nonsensical or potentially would hurt the country, he doesn't really mean. So we'll have to see what happens. People are talking about executive orders that are going to get signed on January 20th that start the process of deportation. If that's the case, I think it's going to be a very ugly thing for the country. If he's not going to do that, God bless. Look, I want him to do well. He's the president. She lost, he won. I hope he does well. I think he's got phenomenal political instincts because the Harris team and Vice President Harris herself did not understand the impact that they were having, negative impact that they were having politically related to crypto.
Yes.
And so you had arbitrary and capricious behavior. Things that these people accused Donald Trump of doing, frankly, they were doing. That would be Gary Gensler and Elizabeth Warren. So the law said that you had to approve a Bitcoin ETF. Gary Gensler said no. But you're not above the law, Gary. This is what the law says. You can't be arbitrary and capricious in the administration of the law. But Gary said no. And so he delayed personally. He personally delayed the Bitcoin ETF for 2 years. That should have been approved in January or February of 22. It didn't get approved until 24. Now, you could also say, well, you know what, we got lucky. Maybe that helped the industry because it exposed Sam Bankman-Fried. It exposed leverage in the system like Three Arrows and leverage in the system like Celsius, and others imploded. And maybe he cleaned out by accident a lot of the undesirables in the crypto markets. But still, people were upset. They went into the voting booth and they voted people out that were anti-crypto. Fair Shake, the Political Action Committee, they went 48 for 48 on these campaigns. Sherrod Brown, and I know you're younger than me, Ryan, and perhaps your viewership is younger than me, but these senior senators, they have a 95% chance of getting reelected, 95% chance. And Sherrod Brown, who was the chairman of the Banking Committee, Senate Banking Committee, a friend and acolyte of Elizabeth Warren, Mr. Anti-Crypto himself, got blown out of the seat. $40 million of crypto money went into that campaign. And so the irony is the Democrats still don't understand it. When you meet with them and do a debriefing, they don't understand it. They've got some SEC commissioner who's Miss Anti-Crypto, and they're trying to jam her in here before Joe Biden's term is out. So it's like, okay, guys, you're going to lose every election for the next 20 years. You know, the American people have spoken. They want to own cryptocurrencies, and they want cryptocurrencies in their portfolio. And they know that there's a great competition with other nations, and they want to make sure that the United States can maintain its mantle of financial services leadership. So what the hell are you guys doing? And give Donald Trump credit for that. He understood it. He raised money off of it. He went to the Bitcoin conference. He's given several speeches. I was with Eric Trump this past week. Now, I'm no longer friendly with Eric, but I saw his speech at the Bitcoin thing, and I applaud Eric for what he said.
Yeah.
You know, politics is rough. You know, once Trump went after my wife on Twitter, that was the end of my relationship with him. You know, I'm not Ted Cruz. Right? Do I look like Ted Cruz?
Because
I'm not Ted Cruz. Okay?
All right, so
you're not allowed to do that in my family.
Your take then as well. I mean, this is certainly the crypto take, and it's hard to know sometimes whether we're in a bubble of this. Is like the anti-crypto army on the Democrat side, Elizabeth Warren, Gary Gensler, that whole cohort, and then the lack of like Kamala Harris pivot on crypto in any way. She wouldn't say a thing in her campaign that was pro-crypto. Do you think that cost her the election, or at least
among
some
the things.
smart?
There were three things that cost her the election. Number one, she was having a very hard time defining herself. Again, Donald Trump was everywhere. Every podcast that Donald Trump went on, she should have went on. She wouldn't do it. She went on Fox News. It was 1 week prior to the election. And she should have been on Fox News for all 107 days. She couldn't do it. She wouldn't do it. She couldn't explain the situation going on in the economy. The economy is actually improving. Wages have grown. Wages have frankly outpaced inflation. Lower and middle income wages last 4 years. Inflation has been terrible for our society, but the wages have been better than the inflation. And there was a couple of pieces of legislation that they passed that was quite good. The reshoring of manufacturing, $250 billion. The CHIPS Act, moving microprocessor foundries into the United States. The bridges, roads, and tunnels that have been rebuilt during the Inflation Reduction Act, wages went up as a result of that. So she couldn't explain it. And then the third thing, and this is something that Trump was masterful on, again, we have to be objective. There's a culture in our society that most Americans don't like. It's the cancel culture. It's the pronoun designation culture. It's the you said something mean, so therefore we're going to knock you out of your job. And there were moms, 55% of the white women voted for Donald Trump. 46% of all women voted for Donald Trump. And when they came out of the polling, they said, hey, had enough of this. We made a vote to protect our kids, our sons, our brothers, our husbands. And I, it was, by the way, it was so resonating that AOC, who looked at the crosstabs on her election, people voted for her, Ryan, but many of her supporters split the ticket and voted for Donald Trump. And so she asked her supporters why. They told her, and then the very next day she took the pronoun designation off of her Twitter feed. So the Democrats have to shape up. They've got to return to blue collar, lower and middle income families with solutions. And they've got to cut this nonsense about scolding people about the way they live or scolding people about the way they talk. I really believe that. Now, having said all of that, it was still a very close election. I know President Trump likes to say that he won by a landslide and it was an overwhelming mandate and all this other, but he didn't. He's got one member of the House more than the Democrats. He won by a couple of million votes. Great, because most people didn't think he was going to win the popular vote, but not great when you compare it to 16 of the most recent presidential elections. I mean, I think he's got the second most narrowest, if you will, the second narrowest victory.
But in that list, Anthony, you didn't mention crypto at all in that list of three. So like in crypto, we like to think that we're important. We were sort of an election issue or tech. I mean, it was for some people.
I thought that was the first one. I was saying there were three other things
in addition
to her stance on crypto. Yeah,
I want to know.
No, I think crypto really hurt her.
Yeah.
And I think crypto really hurt them in the Congress, in the Senate and in the House.
With Sherrod Brown and some of those.
Yeah, Sherrod Brown.
So,
the guy Casey from Pennsylvania got knocked out by McCormick.
Right.
It really hurt them.
I think there's a lot of people in crypto that don't want crypto to think that hope that crypto is not a bipartisan issue like moving forward, right? And then hope maybe the anti-crypto army is kind of nullified in the Democratic Party, that is just like no longer has teeth, that it's a thing of the past, that crypto returns to a bipartisan issue. Do you think Democrats have really have they learned their lesson? I mean, you were just you're pointing out the example of this vote for Caroline Crenshaw, SEC commissioner, that I believe was this week. They're putting her up for vote. And I heard that Brian Armstrong, the crypto industry, was basically like, hey, Congress, be careful how you vote on this one because we're watching. And remember Fair Shake, and remember the races that we
they'll be
impacted.
Double the money next time. So there was $250 million that went into these campaigns. It'll be double next time.
Yeah, okay, so have they learned the lesson?
No. Well, I said that. They haven't learned the lesson. I've been on
I can't believe that. That seems so shoot yourself in the foot. That seems so...
Well, I asked the question to some of these Democrats, and I'm going to ask you the question. I want you to give me the answer. I know it's your podcast, but let me ask you this question. Did Democrats win any votes being anti-crypto and having a quote-unquote anti-crypto army? Did Democrats win any votes?
Zero.
Did she win any electoral college?
No one votes for a politician because they're anti-crypto. I can't believe that voter
so
exists.
that's my answer. So when I said to these guys, what are you doing exactly? The rest of the world has embraced crypto. China hasn't, but trust me, China's coming into the swimming pool again. You just watch. It's just a matter of time. But the Western world has embraced it. All we're asking for is fair regulation. We're not asking for no regulation. We want there to be safety. We want there to be transparency. We want to eliminate fraud. So it's just better for all of us. But you tell me, I think these guys, they do not get it. Just the fact that they put her up in the lame duck session post-election is a sign they don't get it. And I'll say something that worries me, if you don't mind, because you have some really smart people that come on your podcast, and we have to influence these people. We do not want crypto, and what I mean by crypto, its regulation and the manifestation of its growth in the United States, to be owned solely by President Trump. We want this to be a bipartisan issue. And let me tell you something that they did that also hurt them. Maybe this would be fifth on the list. In January of 2021, Joe Biden repealed all of the executive orders related to the border restrictions that Donald Trump put in place. And he said these things were inhumane, and because Trump did it, we hate it, and Trump's an evil person, and so we're going to revoke him. But if you don't like Donald Trump or you think he's a bad guy, analyze some of the policies. Some of these policies are quite good. And that was catastrophic for the Democrats. And what's at risk here, Ryan, Donald Trump likes it. Donald Trump is bad. So therefore, now we will do the opposite of Donald Trump.
100%, Anthony. I was just
You agree with me, right?
no,
So we have to get these guys off of that.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure that this is a bipartisan thing. Remember, China and our defense of our industries against China using tariffs was a good idea by Donald Trump. It wasn't embraced immediately by the Democrats, but they now both, in a bipartisan way, embrace it. We've got to get them to embrace crypto the same way. I'm sorry. I overstepped you, but I just wanted to say that.
No, I was just going to agree with you. And I don't know if that's a solvable problem, kind of the whipsaw sort of effect, which is like, I just saw a clip earlier this week from MSNBC, and they were talking about Trump's advocacy for a strategic Bitcoin reserve, right? And of course, like they never talk about crypto. They never talk about Bitcoin. But in this context, because Trump is so pro-Bitcoin, pro-crypto, they have to whipsaw on the other side of it, right? And this is almost like make up reasons why they don't like it. I want to ask you maybe a more tactical question, because it does seem like obviously we had an anti-crypto administration, at least in like the executive branch. We had Operation Choke Point, we had Gary Gensler, we had all of these things. What do you think about the cabinet and some of the administrative positions? So you got SEC, the name is Paul Atkins. We've got CFTC chair, lots of good names around there. Summer Mercenary, who's been on the show, Brian Quinten's possibilities. We've got a crypto czar type position. We've got maybe favorable treasury as well. I mean, what do you think about this administration that Trump is putting in place with respect to its crypto posture?
Yeah, that's a good part, you know. It's funny, Trump is not that we're talking about astrology on your podcast, but Trump is a Gemini, right? So he's a twin. He's got two people in one body, right? He's got the evil bad twin, and then he's got the good twin, right? And so you get a mixed bag with the guy. And the stuff coming out on crypto is, I think, fantastic. I think you learn when you do these things. When I was on his transition team in 2016, you learn that personnel is policy. And so Besant, positive on crypto, understands it, wants us to be a force in crypto. Atkins, positive on crypto, understands the libertarian concepts of it, wants the United States to fairly regulate crypto. Howard Lutnick, he told Anthony Pompliano he's got hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin. I guess he's going to have to put that in a blind trust at this point, but he's Secretary of Commerce, loves crypto. So personnel being policy, and those are just some of them. I mean, there's a whole list of others. You know, what about David Sachs? You know, David Sachs is going to go be the quarterback inside the White House to help run AI and crypto strategy.
Does that position have power, by the way, the crypto czar thing?
See, it's interesting. It doesn't have to have power, but it can have influence. And so meaning everything is coming into your field of vision, and you're like, okay, let me go to the president on this. It's important. President certainly has power. He'll call administrative agencies. He'll call senators and House of Representatives to move things for me. Or he can provide context, or he can provide advice. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think it doesn't have power where he can trigger pull on something, but it has influence. Remember, there are two types of levers in Washington. One is power, executive orders. You vote on the House floor, the Senate floor for a bill. And the other one is influence. You're a consigliere to the president, or you're an aide, a congressional aide, and you're advising people on what to do or how to vote. Those jobs are not direct power, Ryan, but they're powerful enough.
Do you think we'll get a strategic Bitcoin reserve? Do you think that's a thing?
I do, actually.
What does that look like, do you think? So we had Cynthia Lummis on the podcast, and basically if you read through her bill, that is, the very first proposal is basically keep the Bitcoin you already have. And the U.S. has like 200,000 Bitcoin in reserve, right? So that would be level one. Trump could maybe do something like that and kind of call that a success. Now, going beyond that, actually purchasing Bitcoin, actually creating a like a Fort Knox for crypto, maybe that's possible as well. But what do you think is going to happen here?
Well, so first of all, I'm very close to her. I'm very close to Tim Scott. They were both at my conference in Wyoming. Obviously, she's a senator from the great state of Wyoming. And we talked about it over the summer. They've got the votes. Haggerty wants it. McCormick wants it.
They have the
But
votes in the Senate, do you think?
I think so, yeah. There's 53.
Really?
I do think so, yes.
For like to her bill to get 1 million Bitcoin, right? That was her full bill,
Yeah,
right?
well,
It's to keep the
this stuff
200,000 then.
This stuff gets horse traded. So you'll probably have 200 won't get sold. They'll probably buy another 400,000 or 500,000 Bitcoin
What?
over the next. Oh,
You
don't
think
that's
this is
gonna happen?
real? It's okay. So, I mean, we've been in crypto for a while. The fact that we're even talking about it still honestly blows my mind.
Well, let me
But
tell
yes,
you-
we had a
let me-
sitting
but
senator
let
talk about
Let me
it.
tell you why I think it will happen, okay? Trump wants it to happen. And he's got the Senate Banking Committee. Tim Scott wants it to happen. He's going to be the chair of the Senate Banking Committee. Besant wants it to happen. If you're telling me there are no Democrats, and I don't believe this because a lot of Democrats voted for the Saab 121 bill. If you looked at the dispersion of vote, it was a bipartisan approval of that bill. And by the way, Ryan, it was if you were 40 or 50, let's say you were below the age of 60, you voted for the bill if you were a Democrat. If you were a fossil like Elizabeth Warren or Sherrod Brown, you voted against it. So if you're telling me there are no Democrats that are going to vote for that, then I'll say, okay, then we're not going to get it. But I don't see that. I think Ro Khanna would vote for it. I think there's a lot of Democrats that look at it and say, if Bitcoin is digital gold and we have $600 billion of gold on reserve at our bank, in the Federal Reserve Bank, you're telling me we couldn't put 75 to $100 billion of Bitcoin on reserve? Is that what you're saying? And by the way, you may even liquidate some of that gold to do that. You're saying that's not possible.
That would be so wild to me. I just like, but like maybe that's a possibility. What about the people who
what
say?
did Cynthia say to you? What did Senator Loomis say to you?
I mean, she obviously is a bull. She thinks it can happen. And by the way, it's like I watched that MSNBC clip. They were saying, oh, Trump's gonna like sell gold to buy Bitcoin. He's not. The Loomis bill was not actually selling gold. It was actually just like adjusting the value of gold on the U.S. balance sheet to the fair market value. It's like book value right now, fair market value, and then you use that excess and go buy. So they're not even talking about selling gold, but yeah, I mean, she's obviously bullish, but she is a massive Bitcoin bull, as you know. I mean, there's a counter like take to this, which is, hey, you don't want to, you'll lose the confidence of the U.S. dollar if you start purchasing assets like Bitcoin. Right, because then people will say, "Oh, well, actually, what is the dollar backed by? Is the Fed scared? Is Treasury scared? Why do they need this non-fiat asset to start backing its currency? And you could cause problems that way. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's possible. I guess the question is, what stage are we at? Maybe because I've been in the space longer than some of these people. Maybe I think we're further along. But if you're at the stage that I think we're at, where people like Larry Fink and people at Franklin Templeton, Jenny Johnson, and people like Abigail Johnson at Fidelity, and you name the different people that are recommending allocations. And the comparisons are if I say if it's digital gold, my buddy Michael Saylor will get mad at me because he calls it digital property. I mean, he's called me and said, I heard you on that podcast. It's not digital gold. But let's just, for the sake of this argument, let's say that it is digital gold to these people. And if we're at that point and we're in a modern society and Trump wants to make a statement, and we believe, rightly or wrongly, that the Chinese are going to move to buy Bitcoin, and they're going to move to make it a strategic reserve asset for the Chinese economy and the Chinese government. And if that's the case, what are we talking about? We're talking about $70, $80 billion. To put it in perspective, we've got a $6 trillion budget. So you're talking about 1% of it, 1.5% of the budget to buy Bitcoin, but we're also talking about it over 5 years. So you're talking about 30 basis points of the budget over 5 years, which could, emotionally strengthen the dollar and could put the United States on better competitive footing, or at least tie the United States with other Western nations. Said differently, if you put me in that seat, forget about the fact that I own Bitcoin. If you put me in that seat and said, is it in the United States' national interest to have a strategic reserve in Bitcoin? I would say yes. And then if you said to me, why? I would say 3 reasons. Number one, I do believe it's digital gold. And I think the future is changing, and I would want to have it on our balance sheet like we do gold. Even if you said I had to sell $100 billion of gold and replace it with $100 billion of Bitcoin. Number two, your generation, forget about me, I'm an old fart, but you're a young man. Your generation is going to live further and deeper in the digital world than me. You know, I'm old enough to remember when the internet didn't exist. I'm old enough to remember when AOL was the way we got into the internet. And I have, should I embarrass myself on your Bankless podcast and tell you that I have an AOL email? Because I do.
Do you really?
I do.
Do you still use it?
You're laughing. You're laughing at me, but because that was the way you got in. Now I have other emails.
Yeah.
But I had that one. I still have it.
Well, okay.
And by the way, you had to pay for it.
Yeah.
They give it to you for free now, but you had to pay a monthly fee to have an AOL email. And so I'm telling you, your generation is going to be way more sophisticated about this stuff.
Well, I gotta say, I mean, the reason I sound so surprised is just because the ripple effects of the kind of the most powerful country in the world, like the economy in the world, like kind of basically with the reserve currency setting financial policy, purchasing Bitcoin, setting up a Bitcoin strategic reserve, that would be massive because that sets off, the game theory of every single country has to own it after that. There's like 9 countries that own Bitcoin right now. And I was just looking at this earlier in the week. The 2 that have the most notably are the US right now and China. And they both have around 200,000 Bitcoin, and it's both through confiscation, right? So the idea is that like maybe these governments are going to sell it. They haven't established it as government policy that they're continuing to acquire Bitcoin. But it's notable that the 2 largest kind of superpowers, economic rivals, have the same amount of Bitcoin. And if the US starts acquiring more, what is China going to do? Whether they declare it or not, whether they're explicit about it or not.
I'm a cynical person. I think China is already acquiring it.
Probably.
Yeah. I think they're already acquiring it because they're like, holy, blank. Trump is going to be long and pro Bitcoin. We kicked all the Bitcoiners out of this country. And again, more evidence about the strength and resiliency of Bitcoin. They kicked all the Bitcoiners out of the country, and 10% of the mining, Ryan, still happens in China. So to me, I don't know. I mean, look, this is the stuff I like about Trump, right? Like I said, you have a good twin and you have a bad twin in there. And the good twin is like, yeah, we're going to have a muscular defense and we're going to have a muscular national economic story. And Bitcoin could be a very big part of that for people. Also, remember, you're spending globally $7 trillion on verification of transactions. And that's everything from accountants and lawyers and wire fees, credit card fees. I could take you through the whole verification economy. It's $7 trillion. If you're telling me over the blockchain that you and I can trade and transact with each other and have the network itself, the blockchain, the technology, verify the transaction for us in a permissionless and let's call it trustless way because the network is something we both trust, it's going to unleash trillions of dollars of capital that can get deployed into more economic innovation. And we saw this happen with the internet 30 years ago. We saw this happen when we broke up AT&T. Again, not only am I old enough to remember an AOL account, I'm old enough to remember being in Europe and being told at the post office in Rome, if I wanted to call my parents, it was $5 a minute. Okay, we can go to any cafe in Rome today and log into their internet, and we can call like George Jetson does, or the way you and I are doing right now. We can FaceTime our parents. And so the world is changing, and the world is changing for the better. There was a group of politicians in the United States that did not want to embrace and accept that change. And they got their asses kicked in 2024. They got their asses handed to them. And so if Brian Armstrong's saying, hey, fellas, you want to keep this up? We're going to hand you your asses again in 26 and in 28. And by the way, do the math. It's a very tight country, Ryan. You know, we're a 50-50 country. If you have 60 million people that own a cryptocurrency in this country, let's say 3% of them are single issue voters, and that's a very small number. That's 1.8 million people. That could swing a Congress. It could swing the House of Representatives. It swung the presidential election. So are you allowed to curse on this podcast?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, you fuck around and find out. Fuck around. Go ahead.
They already did.
Keep the nonsense up with all the stupidity, and let's see where it goes for you.
With over $1.5 billion in TVL, the mETH protocol is home to mETH, the fourth largest ETH liquid staking token, offering one of the highest APRs among the top 10 LSTs. And now, CmETH takes things even further. This restaked version captures multiple yields across KRAKEN, Eigenlayer, Symbiotic, and many more, making CmETH the most efficient and most composable LRT solution on the market. Metamorphosis Season 1 dropped $7.7 million in Cook rewards to mETH holders. Season 2 is currently ongoing, allowing users to earn staking, restaking, and AVS yields, plus rewards in Cook, mETH protocol's governance token, and more. Don't miss out on the opportunity to stake, restake, and shape the future of mETH protocol with Cook. Participate today at meth.mantle.xyz. Are you ready to take control over your entire financial life? Crypto, DeFi, and fiat all in one place? Meet iYield, the free financial planning tool built for crypto natives. Unlike traditional portfolio trackers that just show you the value of your assets, iYield goes deeper. It consolidates everything: assets, debts, income, and expenses, offering you a complete financial picture across 16,000 tokens, 40 DeFi protocols, and all fiat currencies. With real-time DeFi yield tracking for platforms like Aave, Athena, Eigenlayer, and Uniswap, iYield ensures that you're always on top of your staking rewards, investments, and cash flow. And the best part? It's 100% free with no ads, and it's secure. No personal data, no ID requirements, no compromises. So head over to iYield.com to sign up today and get the guesswork out of financial planning. Are you looking to pay your team in stablecoins or set up token grants with ease? Traditional payroll providers aren't designed for crypto. Handling tax withholdings, government reporting, and local filings for tokens can be a nightmare. With TOKU, everything about global token compensation gets simpler. Whether it's paying full-time employees in stablecoins, managing token grant administration, or even navigating the TGE process, Token covers over 100 countries on one seamless platform. Integrate TOKU with your current payroll system or choose a fully managed service. Either way, TOKU simplifies every part of token compensation. However you work, TOKU works for you. No guesswork, no missed deadlines, no complexity. Visit toku.com, that's TOKU.com, to talk with TOKU today. Radically simple ideas always tend to catch on. That's why CARTESI did the hard work of putting Linux on chain, so that building dApps can be radically simple by using Python or JavaScript and their suite of libraries. Simple, like not rebuilding the basics from scratch. Simple, like dedicated scalable compute for your dApp. Simple, like building dApps however you want. Web3 should be simple too, like bread and butter. CARTESI brings radically simple solutions to Ethereum, so developers can do what they do best: build. Go ahead and discover a flexible modular stack on CARTESI and build your most powerful, ambitious project yet. Visit cartesi.io/simple and simplify your blockchain journey and start building today.
Well, we've kind of seen where it's going. It's certainly going the pro-crypto direction. Let's talk about Wall Street and crypto. And this is kind of a subtext for your book. You were talking about you were asking the question of how far along is crypto, how far along is Bitcoin, right? And you were talking about, Abigail Johnson and Larry Fink and kind of Wall Street really coming around to crypto this cycle. And that's part of the subtitle of your book, right? Yeah. You got a little book of Bitcoin, what you need to know that Wall Street has already figured out. Yeah. Let's talk about Wall Street. What have they already figured out about Bitcoin, and whenabouts did they start figuring this out?
So that's a great question, and it's apropos to what happened to me this week, because I was in Abu Dhabi speaking at the Bitcoin MENA, Middle East and North Africa Conference, Bitcoin MENA. And I was in the lobby of the Four Seasons Hotel in Al Marion Island. And I turned to one of my colleagues. I said, do you remember November of 2021 when I saw Larry Fink in this lobby? And my partner looked at me and said, yes. I said, do you remember what Larry said? And he said, oh, yes. I went over to Larry. I said, how are you doing? I understand you're still negative on Bitcoin. I know a few of my friends have talked to you about the positives of Bitcoin. And Larry looked me straight in the face and said, yes, I don't like Bitcoin. I just made a significant investment in Circle, which is a stable coin. It's a digital dollar. I believe in the technical properties of the blockchain, but I don't like Bitcoin.
This was 2021.
2021. Okay. And over that year, you got to give credit where credit is due, because very smart people change their minds. I know in Washington or in politics, if you believe this and then you switch and believe that, you're a flip-flopper and people perceive you not to have convictions. But in business, when you're going in the wrong direction and you adapt and pivot or change your mind, in my mind, it's a sign of brilliance. And so over a 12-month period of time, people went to Larry Fink and explained the technical properties associated with Bitcoin. And what I say to people, I have yet to meet a person of above average intelligence that does the homework on Bitcoin that doesn't go towards Bitcoin. I have yet to meet the person. I did 25 hours of homework on Bitcoin. I read the white paper. I talked to hundreds of people on Wall Street. 25 hours on Bitcoin. I hate Bitcoin. I don't want to go anywhere near it. Now, one person, Stan Druckenmiller, Paul Tudor Jones, Larry Fink himself, Abigail Johnson, do the homework on Bitcoin, go towards Bitcoin. I hated Bitcoin. You know who else hated Bitcoin? Michael Saylor. But he did.
Right.
Ask him. Get him on the podcast. He'll say, oh, it's a fad. It's passé. It's ridiculous. He didn't understand it. I hated it. Why did I hate it? Didn't understand it. Michael Saylor did the homework, and then when Michael Saylor got done doing the homework, he couldn't sleep. Couldn't sleep. He said, Anthony, I couldn't sleep. Once I figured out what Bitcoin was, it's like, how am I going to buy enough of this network? How am I going to do it? Okay. And I said to him, because I got there after him, I said the same thing. Now, I've done in the similar way what Saylor has done, just smaller. Our company is effectively a Bitcoin-based crypto company at this point. We pivoted. And so when you do that, so Fink did that to his credit. And then in January of 2023, we were on our knees. I brought this for you. Is this on video as well, or just this audio?
What's this?
Right, so here's the prop.
Bobblehead?
So this is me sinking. You see the SS Mooch? I'm sinking in a Bitcoin boat. The clowns at my office made the bobblehead. This is a rendition of a picture, graphic art that was put in the New York Post when Bitcoin was at 16,000.
Wow. So they did a graphic of you, like a comic of you sinking in a Bitcoin
sinking
in a boat
sinking in a Bitcoin boat. There I am. Look, look. I'm going down. See it? Look. and okay, so we're on our knees. The BlackRock guys come to us and say, listen, Larry's finally on board, but we need outside investors. So SkyBridge put up $10 million into the BlackRock Bitcoin Trust. We were the first outside money into that trust that got converted into BlackRock ETF. And then they applied for the ETF, and their lawyers, very smart guys, said, hey, you know what? Grayscale's probably going to win this court case. We want to be a part of this. And so the reason I'm bringing all this up is it's an evolution. And so what Larry did, which I think is brilliant, others are now doing. Donald Trump did it. Donald Trump in 2018 or 2019, you can find it, Ryan. President Donald Trump as president, I hate Bitcoin.
No, I remember when this tweet dropped.
Okay, all right, so I'm not making it up. And then he got educated on it. And then he said, wait a minute, I now understand it. I want to be a Bitcoin president. You got to give him credit for that, okay? I'm a balls and strikes person. I told people what I didn't like about him, the bad twin and the good twin, okay? And so he's in. So I'm telling you, on the margin, there's going to be a legion of people this year that do that homework and get long Bitcoin. But there's a supply problem with Bitcoin. I'm not selling are you selling your Bitcoin, Ryan?
I mean, you don't sell Bitcoin, right?
Okay, do you sell Bitcoin, Ryan? Okay, you don't sell Bitcoin.
Why would you sell Bitcoin? You wouldn't sell it for, you don't sell Bitcoin. It's a store of value asset. How many people in Wall Street are converted now at this point in time?
I think a very small group. I just got done telling you.
It's still a small group? Like when you have people like Larry Fink, who is just like,
I think it's a very small group.
Really? Even after 2024 and the success of Bitcoin ETFs, even Ethereum ETFs now really picking
There's
up.
a woman at Goldman Sachs Asset Management. I don't know her name. Maybe it's Charmaine something or other. She runs their asset management. She says Bitcoin's going to zero. She hates Bitcoin.
I was laughing about this.
Warren Buffett hates Bitcoin. He says it's rat poison squared. He says you're buying something with the expectation that the person buying it from you is going to buy it at a higher price. It's all it is a lottery ticket. It's just a gambling token.
Do you know, I was looking earlier this week, there was the Goldman rumor that they were starting a trading desk, a crypto trading desk.
Mm-hmm.
I was laughing to myself because this happens literally every single cycle. So it happened in like 2019, I remember. It's happened every cycle I've been in crypto. Goldman, during kind of like Bitcoin mania, crypto mania, they say they're going to open a desk and they never do. And then they stop and they're silent until the next mania. So maybe there's something to that. I mean, not all of Wall Street's convinced, but it feels like now that we've got regulatory clear sales, we're talking about a strategic reserve for Bitcoin and crypto. It feels like most of Wall Street would be converted at this point in time. They have products to sell. Why wouldn't they? There's not only the Bitcoin narrative, of course. There's stable coins here. There's also tokenization, which, like many in Wall Street have started to talk about. There's a lot for them here. And Paul Tudor Jones, have an entire chapter on this, but you're still telling me you don't think all of Wall Street's convinced.
I don't, because I just got done telling you, Goldman Sachs Wealth Management, no Bitcoin. Morgan Stanley is the only wirehouse that I'm aware of where they'll sell the Bitcoin ETF. You have reverse inquiry at Goldman, reverse inquiry at Merrill, reverse inquiry at UBS. You don't have their FAs calling up Ryan and saying, hey, Ryan, you just gave me $1 million. I want you to put $20,000, $30,000 in a Bitcoin. They're not doing that. They're just not doing it. And but they're going to do it, because they won't be able to not do it. The guys from the University of Wisconsin, sorry, not the university, the public teachers of Wisconsin, and correct me because I may be wrong. It was a pension fund in Wisconsin. I'm not exactly which days. Maybe it was a private, the public employees.
I don't recall which
teachers.
One either, but I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Okay, but they put $153 million in a Bitcoin. When they asked the guy, why'd you do that? He said, well, if you're not long Bitcoin, you're short Bitcoin. I don't want to be in a consultant meeting with my board where they say we are now adding Bitcoin to our tactical asset allocation. So in addition to gold and private equity and bonds and all this other stuff, you're going to have a 1-2% allocation to Bitcoin. I'd rather get long it now. So when that day comes, which it is coming, I'm already in position to say, okay, good, I've got my pension fund covered. But very few pension funds have done that. It's an under-owned institutional and Wall Street asset still. And that's why I think when if you stop and think about it and you say, okay, is it or is it not digital gold? If it's digital gold, it has to trade to $18 trillion. Has to. I was in the Middle East. Okay, you'll like this story. One of the sheikhs that's an investor of mine, he says, Anthony. I said, yes, sir. He says, I hear you on TV. You talk about Bitcoin being digital gold. I said, yes, sir. He said, well, it's not. It's better. It's better than digital gold. Let me tell you something. I live in Saudi Arabia. Right now, the Crown Prince likes me. There's no bone saw in my future. He likes me. But if the Crown Prince turns on me, I have a USB that's about the size of my thumbnail that has $200 million of Bitcoin on it. I'm going to shove it up my ass, and I'm going to head for the Yemeni border.
Wow.
You think I could shove $200 million of gold up my ass? Okay, so the point he was making is that this is way more portable, and it is way more immutable. You can't make any more of it. And we trust it, and we're using it, and it's growing, and we're adopting it. And so to me, I think this is an $18 trillion asset. If it takes 10 years, so what? If I told you that you could hold this asset, it's $100,000 right now, and at the end of 10 years, it'll be worth $1 million. Go back and look at Apple, NVIDIA over the last 10 years and say to yourself, okay, we have something that's very obvious. It's right in front of us. And there are people that said, I can't buy Apple. It's too expensive. It went up 10x. I can't buy NVIDIA. It's a fad stock. It went up 15x. I can't buy Amazon. And they missed it. I'm not missing Bitcoin. I'm not doing it.
Paul Tudor Jones has a chapter in your book. What's the chapter about? What's his story in crypto?
It's just about his odyssey into crypto. We interviewed him about how he didn't understand it. It's a cycle. Everyone goes through the same cycle. I don't understand it. I don't like it. I then start to understand it. Oh, wow. This is another commodity. This is a digital commodity. I got to own it. And it's just about how one of the smartest investors in the world, who's a polymath, who's one of the greatest philanthropists in New York City with the Robin Hood Foundation, and how he's a cutting-edge 70-year-old, Ray Dalio. Okay, these guys looked at this thing, they did the homework, and said, I'm in. And so that's what we did. And by the way, when I bought it, my clients, people wanted to fire me. You want to hear the story? I buy it in October of 2020. It goes from 17,000 to 69,000. My clients are calling me, telling me that I'm a visionary and I'm a genius. We go from 69,000. We flash crashed. I think the low print was like 12,000. I don't know if it was like overnight. It was, remember, so let's call it 15,000. We went from 69,000 to 15,000 in 22. And I had clients calling me, the very same clients called me a genius. You're an imbecile, and I'm selling out my position. Okay. First of all, I wasn't a genius. I'm not an imbecile, but I did see something. And now you go from 16,000 to 100,000. Other people now see it. And so I don't want my clients to miss it. I don't want your podcast listeners to miss it. So that's why I wrote a book about it.
Our podcast listeners are all in, Anthony. Let me tell you, this is kind of
I want them to stay in.
Oh, yeah.
Because and I know Bitcoin could trade to 75,000. We had a move from 70 to 50,000 recently before the election. So yes, it could go down from here. I'm not saying it's going to go straight up. Nothing goes straight up. Just don't sell it.
For a lot of our listeners, part of like doing an episode like this with you is just like you're in the trench, so much about kind of what we call TradFi, right? Just like the Wall Street level. It's interesting to hear what they actually think about this asset class in general. And that's a piece that's fascinating. What's your price prediction for Bitcoin this cycle? Do you do that? Do you give price predictions? What do you think?
I have gotten it wrong forever. I said at the end of 2021, Bitcoin would be 100,000 at the end of 2022. I got my ass kicked. So I made no price prediction in 2023. When the Bitcoin ETF came out, and I guess Bitcoin was like 3540 at the beginning of the year, I said it's going to 100,000. And people scoffed at me and said, well, you made that prediction already, dummy, and it didn't happen. And I said, yeah, I got it wrong because I thought the SEC chairman was going to apply the law the way the law was written. I didn't think he was going to be arbitrary and capricious in the application and administration of the law. In fact, that's exactly what the court said in the ruling. Okay, so now you get the thing approved. It's at 100,000. There's going to be a supply shock, Ryan. And so there's no reason why this can't trade to 200,000 over the next 12 months.
200,000.
You don't have enough Bitcoin in the marketplace. So what happens? I need to own it. My board just told me I got to get a 1% position. Okay. What do I got to do? I got to go buy a 1% position. You start buying it. And it's liquid. It's the deepest crypto market, but it's not super liquid. $10 billion will move that market. It just will.
What about other crypto assets? Do you dabble, or is it all Bitcoin for you?
No, it's mostly Bitcoin, but I own Solana, I own Avalanche, I own Polkadot. I do believe that there's a series of layer ones that are transactional tokens. They're utility tokens, and that I view those as digital software on the internet that you'll be using that application to transact with people. I see Bitcoin, Jack Mallers will get the Lightning Network right. Munir at Stacks will get things right. You'll do transactions to the extent you want with Bitcoin, but it'll be mostly for store of value. Those other ones, I think you can put smart contracts on top of them and run them over their network. And Solana's fast and Solana's cheap. So that's my number one, Solana.
What do you think about Ether? Do you like Ether at all, or do you think that's...
So I don't dislike either. My partner who runs our research department is like an ETH maxi. So he loves ETH. So we do own ETH, but it's not as big of a position as the other two.
Ask him if he's a Bankless fan. I'm curious. We're well-known ETH bulls. Okay, so this book is coming out in January then. Who's it for?
Say again?
Who's this book for that you're putting out in January?
It's for the layperson. I mean, it's a non-academic
Is this kind of
book.
the book that crypto people, crypto natives can just send to their family who's curious?
That's how I wrote the book. Safieddine Almos, who's a brilliant economist, wrote what I think is the Bible. It's called the Bitcoin Standard. That's not this book.
It's pretty hardcore.
Yeah,
for
it's
people who've read that book.
Hardcore, rigorous analysis. I learned so much in that book, and I think it's important for a research analyst or an asset manager to read that book. That's not this book. This is a collection of stories and a collection of different people who are very high profile, who started out with no Bitcoin, and now they own some Bitcoin. And they express to you their reasons why. And then I finish up with a recommendation at the end that, I have a considerable amount of my net worth in it. Michael Saylor's got 100+% of his net worth in it. We're the two named authors on the book. You should own some of it. You should get off of zero is basically the message of the book.
Michael Saylor's on the book too. He's a named author on this book.
Well, he wrote the foreword.
He wrote the foreword.
He also rewrote the last chapter, which was sort of funny. And I can send you a clip, or it's on my Twitter feed. It's pinned to the top of my Twitter feed. He said at the book party, so I read the book and I told Anthony I didn't like the ending. And I said, well, what's wrong with the ending? He said, well, you're recommending a 2% allocation. I said, yeah, well, what's wrong with that? And he said, well, let me ask something. You said in the book it's your best investment idea that you've come up with in 35 years. I said, yes, I did. He said, so you have 50 other investment ideas like that? And I said, no, I don't. He said, well, why are you recommending 2% then? I said, by the way, how much of your net worth is in it? I said, well, over 50%. Over 50%? Well, then why are you recommending 2? And I said, well, because I gave him all the bureaucratic, institutional nonsense. And he said, just tell people that you own more than 50% of your net worth in it. I own 100%, and that most people are starting at 2, but you should own more. Bitcoin's like tacos. Bitcoin's like potato chips. Bitcoin's like Doritos. You can't just have one, Ryan. Once you taste it, you're dipping back into the Bitcoin bowl for more Bitcoin.
Can I ask you this? Because a lot of listeners, and myself included, don't come from a traditional finance background, and so we're looking at what Saylor's doing over there with MicroStrategy, and it just looks phenomenal. And we sort of understand the trade that's going on. There's been some recent articles, recent takes that there's some over leverage going on there, and that could be like a landmine that gets tripped later in the cycle, particularly if people stop buying the debt instruments that MicroStrategy is issuing, or Bitcoin price goes down a significant way or something. Are you on behalf of it sounds like you guys are friends, but are you worried for Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy? Is there something going on there that we should just be eyes wide open about?
I'm going to let him talk about it because get him on your podcast, let him talk about it. But if you looked at his balance sheet, he has long dated convertibles on his balance sheet. So there's no one move that's going to knock Michael out. Moreover, when Bitcoin went from 69,000 to 16, people said, that's it. Michael Saylor's going out of business. That's it. And he got on a conference call. He laid out his balance sheet and explained to people that it's long term. And so the composition of his balance sheet is designed to sustain MicroStrategy through volatile periods of Bitcoin. So I'm not worried about it. I'm worried about something else, though, if you don't mind me sharing with you what I'm worried about.
Yeah, tell me, because, last time in the last cycle, a few things caught us off guard. There was that GBTC kind of trade thing that blew up Celsius and, kind of 3 hours capital and everything that we were talking about at the beginning. Sometimes in these frothy markets, there can be stuff hidden in the water. So, what are you worried about?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you what I'm worried about. You ready? I can't find anything to worry about. And that's what I'm really worried about.
Not recession, not in the broader macro economy.
Well, no, I think a recession would probably help Bitcoin. I think it'd be a flight to safety to Bitcoin. But what I'm worried about is the unknown, right? And so we have like things that we worry about that could happen, it may not happen, but there's something out there that we're not currently worried about that could happen. And it's called an unknown unknown. There are some known unknowns, but there are some unknown unknowns. And that's what I'm worried about, because I'm worried that, okay, I see a rosy 2025. You know what I saw in 2022? A rosy 2022. That's what I saw. Now, I got the 2-year cycle right, the 3-year cycle right, but I'm bullish for 25. You know, you could invite me back on December 25, Bitcoin's down 50%, and I'll be saying to you, geez, Ryan, I got it wrong. I missed something that was out there. Or, and again, I think this will happen, it'll be at 200,000, and then we'll have to evaluate it again at 200,000, see where it's going from there.
So you're a hedge fund guy, and this is kind of a hedging question. I think the Bankless listenership is probably skewed towards people who are like you in that they have north of 50% of their capital in crypto assets. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that unknown piece that you just mentioned, we all know that there are unknown unknowns, but like by nature, we have no idea when it's coming, what they actually are. How do you prepare for that? Is it like dry powder and super safe assets? Like one way I've approached this in the past is just you have your volatile assets over here, like your risk on assets. And I do like the barbell strategy where I'm like heavily skewed towards these risky crypto assets. And then the other side of the barbell is just like super safe T-bills and stuff like that. And like that's how I kind of manage it. But what do you think? How do you hedge for these like unknown unknowns?
So I live below my means. That's how I hedge it. My attitude is I'm long it. It's a number in my Coinbase account, it's a number in my hedge fund, but I'm living below my means. So
you mean just like no lifestyle inflation kind of thing?
No lifestyle inflation. I live in the exact same house. I've got the same cars. I've got the same budget. Because what I don't want to do is drink the Kool-Aid. And, you know, I'm just not going to do that. My attitude is I'm 61 years old. I want to be doing this, hopefully, God willing, if I'm still alive, and knock on wood, 20 years from now, I still want to be doing this. And the smartest people I know hold the greatest assets, and they do nothing, Ryan. And in order to do nothing, you have to be set up in your lifestyle where you can afford your life away from doing nothing. And so I would just tell people, live below your means, buy the Bitcoin, shut it off. You know, Fred Krueger, I think his name is, he had a great line that he says, there are two types of people. There are those that check their Bitcoin price every 15 seconds, and there are those that lie and say they don't check their Bitcoin price every 15 seconds, but check their Bitcoin, you know. But even if you're checking it every 15 seconds, and I appreciate that, don't sell it, lock it up, keep your brain away from Bitcoin. The emotional oscillation of your brain that could be affected by Bitcoin's prices. That would be my message to people, because there is something out there that you and I don't know that could happen that upsets price near term, but I don't think it knocks off the 10-year trajectory.
That's great advice to end it on. As our friend Morgan Housel likes to remind us, like good investing is all about good psychology, right? And you gotta watch out for that volatility. It can really affect your psychology, but not if you have a long-term holding outlook. Anthony Scaramucci, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be on. I really appreciate it on a Friday night, you coming on with me, man. Thank you,
man.
brother.
Well, have a great weekend. Gotta let you know, Bankless Nation, of course, none of this has been financial advice. Crypto is risky. You could lose what you put in, but we are headed west. This is the frontier, not for everyone, but we're glad you're with us on the Bankless journey. Thanks a lot.